Do you want to be a multi-millionaire in your lifetime? It's much easier than you think. And today, we're going to tell you about what our clients do to make that happen. I'm Brad, Certified Financial Planner.
And I'm Matt, Certified Financial Planner. In today's video, we're going to give you the secrets on how to build wealth.
Unlike what you might suspect, most millionaires are not lottery winners, tech company founders, or superstar athletes. They're normal, hardworking people like you and I who've built their wealth slowly over time with discipline.
Yeah, and they're not chasing the new shiny object that's out there or cryptocurrencies. Most of them aren't even buying individual stocks. They're looking at the long-term perspective of their goals and staying in simple investment choices like mutual funds or exchange-traded funds to accomplish their overall goals.
Right, and the beautiful thing about the exchange-traded funds or ETFs, low costs, really tax efficient, which matters when you have millions, and they trade for free. So these are some of the secrets that millionaires that we see on a day-to-day basis are employing to build that wealth. And speaking of not chasing shiny objects, most millionaires are not flashy spenders. They're not hyper consumers. In fact, it might be hard to pick them out of a crowd.
Yeah, the three main things here are frugal, frugal, and frugal. And that doesn't mean you need to be cheap, but most of the time what these people are doing is they're buying the older model of the car. So it's not necessarily has to be a bad car or bad quality or anything like that, but they're buying used vehicles, they're keeping them for a long time, they're staying in their homes for a while, they're not looking at the short term, they're looking at things overall for the long term.
You know, a lot of our millionaire clients like to surf because, as they tell us, going to the beach is free. And in order to be frugal, you need to be disciplined about your spending. In order to be disciplined, you need to have a budget. If you ask most millionaires that we work with, they're very intentional about how they spend, and they have a plan or they work with a budget to really drive what they spend.
Yeah, they're actually spending a lot of time in a month of just knowing where every single dollar is going. And we're not saying, again, that you need to be cheap about this, but if you're intentional, like Brad said, of where these dollars are going, then you can start saving and putting dollars away that way. But one thing that helps is having a living expense worksheet in place and just labeling things out line by line of where your dollars are going. So if you need help with something like that, feel free to reach out to us. We've got a very nice Excel spreadsheet that can get your mind going of what some of those expenses might be that maybe you're not thinking about.
And it's just wild. You ask the millionaires that we work with how much they spend, and they have an answer. They know. But you ask people that haven't accumulated millions of dollars yet, and they really have no idea how much they spend or are going to spend in the next year. While it may seem like millionaires are cheap, one thing they really value is education.
Yeah, that's a big point. They value education for themselves. They usually have bachelor's degrees and sometimes they have advanced degrees. But even more important than that, they care about their education for their kids, and they're usually setting up 529 plans for them and paying for that. So that is one of the things that they'll go over and above all, but they don't necessarily want to continue having the kids on the payroll.
And the beautiful thing about the 529 plan is all of the growth of the investments in there completely tax-free, and it all comes out tax-free as long as it's used to pay for qualified higher education. So 529 plans is pretty common amongst the multimillionaires that we work with. And while multimillionaires often pay for college for their kids, one thing they don't do is put their children on economic outpatient care, meaning they don't spoil the kids or entitle the kids or continue paying for the kids' expenses long after they graduate college.
Yeah, in fact, about 80% of millionaires are self-made, so they're doing it on their own. They're not expecting any inheritances. They're not trust fund babies or winning the lottery or anything like that.
Yeah, and that's a value that they try to instill in their children. Because think about it, the faster you can get your kids off the payroll, the more money you can save for your future wealth building. One of the key things that multimillionaires understand is the difference between income and wealth.
Yeah, many high-income earners struggle with savings, believe it or not. I mean, I know a lot of broke dentists out there where you're having to dress the part or you're buying Dodge Vipers, and so income is taxed at the higher levels and you don't necessarily have that extra income to save. So although the balance sheet looks good with income coming in, there's not anything left over.
Right, and so the multimillionaires are really tax sensitive. They have strategies in place to help lower the tax bill not only today but in future decades to come. Things like Roth conversions in the gap years, backdoor Roth IRA strategy, mega backdoor Roth contributions, qualified charitable distributions, donor advised funds. These are all things that multimillionaires care about because they know if they can keep the tax bill lower, they get to keep more money in their pocket.
And then using capital assets, because these are tax advantageous too, lower than your ordinary income rates most of the time.
Absolutely. Multimillionaires do things the old-fashioned way through thrift, savings, and dollar cost averaging into their investment portfolio.
Yeah, believe it or not, most of the millionaires we work with value financial independence, which usually includes spending time with grandkids or spending money on family and friends rather than buying the new luxuries that are out.
Yeah, they don't want to be a slave to their job and have to keep up with fashion trends and keep up with the Joneses. They'd rather live below their means, save a whole bunch of money, and then really place emphasis on experiences and memories that don't cost a whole lot but can be so much more meaningful.
Yeah, so this allows them to dollar cost average over time, which is putting investments in the market on the same time every month, and sometimes you're buying more when the markets are down and less when the markets are up, but kind of averages that cost out over time.
If this information sounds familiar, it's because it comes from the book, The Millionaire Next Door. And this book is spot on because we work with millionaires and this is so accurate.
And one thing the book mentions that we didn't cover was that most of these millionaires work with a financial advisor. So if you want to aspire to accomplish some of these things, feel free to give our office a call. We're more than happy to have a conversation.
Otherwise, we'd appreciate it if you'd like the video, share it with a friend, and we'll see you on the next one.